Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. We're going to take a quick look here at, well, some important stuff here on the charts, but also understanding that there's big progress in Russia. We need to stay tuned. President Trump sending tweets again, Sunday pumps. This is very consistent in the market right now. Overall, we're going to analyze the coins that are doing well and poorly versus that. Also understanding a little bit more about Bitcoin dominance and how that works. Furthermore, to CME gaps here that may or may not get filled. We're going to talk about those forming gaps as well. So be sure to stick around. We've got an important one here today. Let's take a look. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started off with our crypto market overview. First, just to give you some perspective where we're at, Altcoin Season Index went up higher here today. Specifically this morning, it was in the low 40s and jumped up to 47, 48 at its highest. This is a good sign here letting us know that altcoins are responding well to Bitcoin pumps, specifically because Trump did tweet this morning, in case you missed it, big progress in Russia, stay tuned. Basically just letting us know that things are on the up and up, so to speak, and that the market responded correctly to that, right? So altcoins essentially pumped. Now, a lot of folks feel that Binance will dump on us here based on the simple fact that that's just typically how it works. In other words, BNB coin is the first coin to front run altcoins, which it did yesterday. And obviously that happened while I was sleeping. Otherwise, I would have notified you. But the simple concept here is that when BNB goes up, altcoins tend to follow, and then BNB will typically pull back first, and altcoins also follow that too. Mainly because Binance rather controls the majority of the market, and they're able to pump and dump the market as they see fit. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and double check a couple of things here. First of all, with our CME gaps, just let you know there is a CME gap forming. 117,600 is where Bitcoin's at for its current CME gap. Its current CME start of the gap. It hasn't been filled yet, it's forming, but it will be, we'll see here in a couple of hours, honestly, when the futures market opens, what that looks like. But the key takeaway here is that we're really close in the price action there, so that's not a super big outlier. What are big outliers, however, is Ethereum and Solana. These two coins are looking very overextended, if you will, because we can see 44.50 is when the CME gap had closed on Friday, or CME futures closed on Friday, and Ethereum's at 45.26. So we could see that gap get filled there. And then same thing as well with Solana. Solana's in the 190s right now, and 185.50 was the the close of that gap there. So we'll see here soon how that opens within the next couple of hours. If I'm not mistaken, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when CME futures opens. So we'll see that here soon. Furthermore, too, just give you some perspective on the crypto trading cheat sheet here. This is just a good indication of what's going on here. So with Bitcoin dominance pulling back, puts us in one of 3 categories where the price of Bitcoin, if it goes up, then we typically see alt season. That's just an easy way to understand it. We don't actually have alt season, but the concept is that altcoins are going to do well, right? So they either go up or run pretty fast if Bitcoin goes sideways or up. Bitcoin goes down, we're going to see some stability for altcoins. So I don't think we should expect a lot of correction for altcoins until Bitcoin dominance starts to turn around, okay? So as this continues to go lower, we should be in pretty good shape for altcoins here to go higher. That's the concept there. Other than that, not much else to really recognize except for just some quick outliers here and showing that 4,400 was a solid support for Ethereum. Solana is still on its way up. Solana and SUI responded very well to this recent pump here this morning, but XRP is lagging behind. So we're going to double check XRP, kind of keep a closer eye on it, see if it's worthwhile taking a trade or not. All right, so let's jump into Bitcoin, see what's going on. Now that we understand the foundation of where we're at, we want to double check a few important factors here. So first and foremost, we still have more longs than shorts in the market right now with the average top trader. So these are high balance, high volume trades essentially that are more long versus short at the moment. Same thing here as well with bids versus asks. We're seeing a lot more buy orders than sell orders, so the dips are being bought. That's the simple way to understand it. When we look here at open interest for Bitcoin, we want to recognize that there are some key levels here, 120.5K and 120,000. Those are like the 2 heaviest concentrations here. So those will work as resistance levels. Same thing with 119,000. So the easy way to understand is every $1,000 for Bitcoin, 119, 120, 121, these are all areas that are resistances above the price action. So I would expect to see some resistance when we come up to that level. And just so you know, that's what this red line is here on the chart, just to kind of distinguish the key level resistance in the recent past here. 120 has been a solid resistance for us. Take a look at the daily time frame just to recognize here, we do have our overextension followed by a continuation lower. We are struggling to close above our point of control here. So a closure, once again, below 118,000 today would signify further downside. So it's hard for me to want to trust this pump here on a Sunday, even though it wasn't really like a super pump. It was just kind of a little, a little stimulus, if you will, from President Trump. Now, when we take a look here, we can see as well in the 4-hour time frame, we're still under some key level moving averages, specifically the 50-day SMA. And we look at our RSIs too, we can recognize we're still under 50 here as well on the RSI. So once more, some indications that we have shifted momentum while we have moved above our moving average there. Getting over 50 on the RSI to me is an important factor that hasn't happened yet. So I'm not super sold on Bitcoin being back on track. Low volume weekends, it's hard to trust this, okay? So that's another reason why I generally recommend not trading on the weekends. Try to minimize your trades on the weekends, folks, because there's just too much manipulation, and it seems to be that we see like these good little strong little continuations on Sunday mornings, and then Sunday nights the realism sets in and we start to see some corrective behavior. All that being said here, open interest is still heavy at 43.75 for Ethereum. Take a look here at Ethereum's liquidation. We can see a lot more liquidation on the downside. We're at about 15 billion in short liquidation delta. It tells us that shorts are either A, going to get squeezed out really hard here soon if the pump continues, or B, there's more people shorting than taking longs right now, and it makes more sense to go in with the grain and effectively understand that this is probably a dead cat bounce based on the simple fact that the market's trying to rally back when we're still in a short-term descending trend. Okay, we haven't established higher highs yet. I'm not super concerned with Ethereum rallying back, so to speak. I still feel like we're going to see this $4,100 to $4,400 support level retested. That would make the most sense. But we're kind of smack dab in the middle of a lot of liquidation, so I don't see any specific outliers here telling us we're either A, back on track, or we're going to continue either up or down. It's one of those neutral situations here. And you probably, asking, or maybe thinking to yourself, well, we just broke our descending trend. Isn't that important? The short-term trend, yes, that is. It's a good sign, but for the most part, when we look at our RSIs and we recognize here, we're still under some key level resistances, and while the daily time frame is still bullish for Ethereum, the 4-hour time frame looks like we're getting a bit on the overextended side. We're moving into this 0.5, 0.618 resistance range, and we have a lot of volume here locally at about 4,500. So 4,550 rather is that point of control here. So we have the most amount of volume at that level, therefore exit liquidity in that range, which we're seeing right now already. So my expectation is that we're going to pull back a bit further, because if you take a look at this actual trend here based on the 4-hour time frame, we still haven't established higher highs yet. As you can see, we're in a position where the price action hasn't essentially broken above its local high. And once more, that's usually a sign of I wouldn't say weakness. It's still too early to tell, but this is a low volume weekend, folks. So don't trust these low volume pumps. That's the key takeaway here. All right, so once more, I'll post updated playout charts on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. That's all available for you there. Moving on to Solana. Let's go ahead and see what's up with Solana. We got a lot of resistance above us, 197 and 205 respectively. Those are two areas we've talked about previously. Short liquidation delta is still high, 4 billion. That's quite a lot. And then we look at our liquidation heat map. We can recognize 200 is that next area of liquidation. So we may see a quick little push up here to trap late longs and to effectively sweep those late shorts. That's a strong probability if this continuation occurs. In other words, Bitcoin needs to go sideways and up a little bit to see a Solana continue as well. At this point, it's hard to warrant jumping into a trade where we're overextended on a weekend, leading into a potential resistance for Bitcoin. That doesn't make sense to me. So 118K, once more to reiterate, is that resistance for Bitcoin, at least short term, right? We want to close either above or below that to show strength in that bullish engulfing type of candle. All of that being said, Solana is still kind of on the edge of greatness here. In other words, it's still honoring its ascending trend. And for the most part, we're above most of these moving averages. So the truth is the short-term trend should continue higher. I just don't trust the current situation. You need to recognize and understand weekends are highly manipulated based on the simple fact that we have lower volume and it's easier for market makers to push the price action because there's less people trading. That's a simple way to understand it. So Solana, still don't trust it. I don't think I will for a little while until we break either above or below those key level resistances. Moving on to SUI, let's take a look in the back end once more just to reaffirm and reiterate. $4 and $4.30. Basically, the range of 4 to 4.30 is a heavy concentration of open interest. We're going to see a lot of exit liquidity if the price makes it back there. So please understand that yes, SUI is doing well in the short term. I don't think this is highly sustainable. Look at this here. With this little pump here, we got still more people shorting than taking longs. That is usually an indication you don't want to try to take a long into that, right? So the trend is still down, believe it or not. I know it seems kind of weird to see because it just pumped, right? But that's short term and short lived. So just be cautious and careful. We can see 360 to 350 is that heaviest level of liquidation, as low as 340. So I do still think we're going to see that level retested here soon. Overall, looking at the 4-hour time frame here for SUI, we have broken above all moving averages. That's positive, but in the overall sense here, we can see that we're still under that key level resistance of $4. And if we do take a look at our moving averages, we can see we're consistently really close to this 50 level on the RSI. So there's a lot of conflict when the price kind of squeezes into that range. So I don't really trust this kind of price action. And I would say that if you're considering a short for SUI, it makes more sense still to consider that. But on the same accord, not really loving it. Actually, hold on. Let's double check this. This kind of looks like a Head and Shoulders, right? Am I seeing that correctly? I don't know. Kind of looks like we might continue a bit lower there based on that. That's not a pattern you want to try to read into, by the way, folks. But a lot of times you'll see that happen because that key level resistance, i.e. $4, is reaffirmed and retested multiple times. Okay. So the second attempt, we probably will likely continue lower. So I just don't really trust this either. So I'm still leaning more towards the price pulling back just based on how manipulative these weekends can be. And we're still facing low volume. That's a simple way to understand it. All right, XRP, double checking a couple of things. 312, 312, 320, 330, 340. We're seeing some consistency there. You see these heavy round numbers. Every 10-cent range for XRP has solid resistance. So just note, if you're going to consider a long, 319 might be an appropriate consideration for a take profit instead of 320, because those are always round numbers. Round numbers carry a lot of validity and or support and resistance. All that said, open interest kind of lets us know we got more resistance above than below. Furthermore, too, short liquidation delta is at 2 billion. And if we look at our liquidation heat map, we have a potential squeeze of 320. We got some liquidation between 315 and 320. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see 320, just based on the simple fact that we're continuing a little bit higher here, squeeze out some of those late shorts. But the key takeaway here is that jumping in, those are early shorts rather. Jumping in at around 320 for a short may be a good consideration. I don't know if we're necessarily going to see that, but I would welcome a 320 short. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. Either way, I don't think we're going to see that because we have a lot of moving averages above the price. We look at some of our other indicators here. We can recognize we're still under 50 in the RSI. XRP is looking truly bearish. Yes, we have a MACD convergence, but that means very little in the face of all this opposition. Simple way to understand it here, though, is we're right here consolidating at our point of control, or at least our secondary most amount of volume. We do have the most amount of control here at 327. That's more locally. But if we do zoom out, we can see there's a lot more volume in the 320 range, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 310 to 315 rather. Okay, so right there is kind of that area. So overall, we're kind of just squeezed out in this little, or we're starting to squeeze and compress in this little support channel, 310 to 320. But it makes a lot more sense for the price to continue lower, considering we're still in a descending trend and we're under all those moving averages. Last but not least, let's just quickly touch on BNB. Give you some perspective because I got a lot of requests for this. The simple way to understand it for BNB is that it's showing a nice strong cup and handle pattern. The likelihood of breakout I think is quite high just based on good momentum. Front running the market, BNB breaks out, we're going to see altcoins continue, and then we're probably going to see a pretty significant correction to the downside based on how manipulated the market is because of Binance, right? So let's take just a quick peek here at the back end liquidation data. Actually, you know what? I've already got that available on our Twitter. I went ahead and post this here. So just quickly note, there's a lot of liquidation between 870 and 890. So we could see a push up to that level. So those would be some solid considerations for shorts as far as scalping shorts are concerned. We do see liquidation delta is approaching break even, and there's a ton of open interest at the current price range too. So 860 is a heavy resistance, big surprise. So that's kind of the overall sentiment there for that. Speaking of sentiment, Majority of you feel that Binance is going to dump on us. 87% vote here after just a few minutes there. So let me know what your thoughts are. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out. CryptoCash.tech is a site link down below if you want to become a better trader. I do look forward to working with you. Thanks so much again for being an awesome part of my life. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you soon.